Discover how a brave single-dad janitor's shocking kiss transformed a billionaire's life forever. Jake's hands trembled as he navigated the smaller break room with a mop and bucket. The sharp scent of disinfectant clashed with the emptiness of the office around him. Working late into the night as a janitor at a top-tier multinational corporation, he felt the weight of his life pressing down on him. Each swipe of the mop echoed a relentless worry that he was doing everything wrong for his son, Tommy. The 8-year-old deserved more than he could possibly offer, and each hour spent cleaning floors instead of building a future hung like a noose around his neck. He wiped his brow. Was this the life he wanted for them? In the corner, he spotted the sleek, polished cafeteria that would soon be filled with the high-powered elite, their laughter mingling with clinking glasses. They were the kind of people who raised their eyebrows at janitors, who sneered at others beneath their success-driven facades. Jake gritted his teeth, determination bubbling within him. He had to work harder, prove himself, if not to them, but to Tommy. He had to break free from this cycle, but how? Panic began to creep in, tempting him to the edge of despair. Before he could spiral further into self-doubt, the door opened. A woman strode in, exuding an authority that blanketed the room, a towering force. Elizabeth Sterling, the powerful CEO, who had been fighting tooth and nail against the very forces that sought to keep her on the sidelines. Jake felt a knot tighten in his chest. She was everything he wasn't, successful, poised, and distinctly out of reach. Her distress was palpable, and for a fleeting moment he forgot his own turmoil as he observed her vulnerability. He couldn't help but wonder if her climb had come with sacrifices, just like his. Was she lonely in her world? His thoughts muddled. He felt a pull toward her, an unseen tether that drew him closer to the coffee machine. Could he dare to bridge that chasm? A wave of excitement challenged his insecurities, yet with every moment, doubt twisted his insides. Caught in this whirlwind of emotions, Jake's heart raced as he realized he was about to speak to her, a woman whose life and worries were worlds apart from his. But as the silence stretched, he hesitated. What could he say? "You know, I clean up the mess you and the others leave behind." A chuckle escaped his throat, but it only sounded bitter in the air. She turned suddenly, her eyes meeting his. There was something different about her gaze. In that split second, everything blurred. The corporate titles, the glass ceilings, they washed away, and he was just a father struggling for a better life. Just as he found his breath, Elizabeth stepped forward, the spark between them undeniable, so electric it sent shockwaves through Jake's body. Before he could register what he was doing, he leaned in and kissed her, just a gentle brush of lips, but it felt like fireworks igniting inside him, illuminating an unknown yearning. That kiss became a reckoning, a moment suspended in time that felt larger than both their lives, as if it had the power to solidify hope or break them both. Could this connection mean something profound, or was it a cruel flicker of possibility that would disappear at first light? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The moment shattered like glass as reality crashed back in on Jake, doubt swirling like debris. He pulled away, breathless and desperate. What had he done? The implications of their worlds colliding loomed heavy, smothering his sense of triumph. He could already hear the whispers that would follow, the judgments from colleagues, and the impossibility of their worlds merging. And yet, in this tumult, something ignited within him, a flicker of courage sparking against the backdrop of his fears. But was it enough to combat the overarching pressure she faced from within her corporate empire? As Elizabeth's eyes widened, filled with unspoken questions, Jake could feel the walls closing in, uncertainty thickening the air, binding him in a web of contradictions. Outside, life surged on, the bustle of the city, unaware of the transformative moment unfolding between them. Jake took a step back, heart pounding and mind racing. Could they transcend their societal barriers, or would the very essence of who they were suffocate this unforeseen connection? With nothing but the silence around them to offer clarity, their journey hung in the balance, a reflection of the struggles they were yet to face, their building tension whispering promises of uncharted territories. Jake's breath hitched as he processed the electric charge lingering in the air. His heart raced, battling a cacophony of emotions that collided within him. The fear of vulnerability clashed with the longing for connection, igniting a conflict deep in his being. He didn't typically belong in places like this, a forgotten janitor brushing shoulders with one of the most powerful women in the country. Would his son Tommy ever understand the turmoil that twisted through his core? This was more than just a moment. It was a thunderclap, revealing layers of identity Jake had long buried beneath the weight of his daily grind. Elizabeth's eyes searched his, holding a mixture of surprise and unfiltered curiosity. The atmosphere shifted, pushing him into unfamiliar territory, the cusp of potential and redemption. She was a fortress against the world, yet here they stood, two complexities meeting in a fragile space that suggested possibility. "Why did you do that?" she asked, her voice trembling just slightly, betraying an intrigue that mirrored his own. Jake fought to ground himself amidst the nervous flutter in his stomach, grasping for words that felt like stones lodged in his throat. I don't know. It was just a moment. I wanted to show you I understand. You're not alone in this, even in a crowd." Her expression softened, flickering like a candle in the wind. This was a rare opening, an invitation to step beyond the constraints of their respective lives and into a dialogue that could finally offer clarity. But would he dare to advance? He had spent years building walls against rejection, equating exposure with pain. Yet the gentle persistence of that kiss lingered, urging him to seek truth rather than retreat. With a newfound resolve, he took a step closer, closing the physical distance between them. "I know I'm just a janitor, and—" "Stop calling yourself that," she interrupted, an unexpected fierceness in her tone. "You're more than this job." Her words ignited a flicker of determination within him. For too long, Jake had identified himself solely by his role, as if his worth measured by menial tasks and the perspectives that labeled him. But Elizabeth saw something beyond the mop and bucket. Could this moment mark the beginning of a shift in his self-perception? Suddenly, the path seemed clearer, illuminated by the glimmer of hope that perhaps he could be more than just a caretaker of floors, but also a builder of futures, his and Tommy's alike. "I want change," he admitted, the vulnerability of that declaration almost unfamiliar on his tongue. "For me, for my son, I want to show him that hard work can lead somewhere." "I understand that deeply," she said, the corner of her mouth lifting slightly. "Tell me, Jake, what are you willing to risk to get there?" An internal war sparked within him. The stakes had escalated from cold floors to uncharted ambitions, and fear twisted around that potential. Jake felt bravery bubble to the surface, the determination that had been buried under obligations. For the first time, he envisioned a future for himself that did not spiral down into a cycle of despair. The image of him urging his son to reach for dreams rather than settle for mere survival ignited something stronger than mere aspiration. Jake squared his shoulders, courage rising to meet uncertainty head on. I don't know what's next, but I'm ready to find out. With you, if you'll allow it. Moments stretched, the air thickening with unasked questions. Elizabeth leaned in, curiosity dancing in her eyes. Was this the juncture that would define both their paths?
Would they forge a connection that could bridge not just their worlds, but their fears and aspirations? But just as Jake began to process the depth of that question, a muted commotion outside the break room caught their attention. The reality of their lives loomed in the hallway. Quick footsteps, voices echoing the promises of a world that seemed far away. Jake's heart sank. They were still tethered to their realities, those shackles of expectation. "Do you think you're ready to face the consequences of this?" Elizabeth asked, a palpable anxiety lurking beneath her facade of poise. Jake's determination wavered briefly, replaced by the harsh reminder of judgment and implications. The thought of the world outside pulling at their budding connection brought him back to the present. Would this be the moment that solidified his transformation, or the catalyst that blew it all apart? Only time would tell, and Jake realized, in that instant of reckoning, he was left with a choice: embrace the unknown or retreat to comfort. But one question loomed large. Was he truly prepared to confront the paths that lay ahead, uncertain as they may be? Jake's heart pounded as he processed Elizabeth's question. He had spent a lifetime playing it safe, skirting edges, fearing anything beyond the tangible routine of his daily life. But this moment stood before him like an uncut gem in the rough, beckoning him to embrace its brilliance. With temperatures rising from uncertainty, he steadied himself, inner resolve cycling between exhilaration and dread. "Ready?" he replied, more to himself than to her, aware of the implications woven within his answer. "It's just, I've never taken a risk like this. I'm terrified, to be honest." Each word dropped like a heavy stone in the silence, clawing at the careful structure of his self-doubt. Elizabeth studied him, her face a landscape of emotions, mirrored within layers he hadn't yet learned to unveil. "You're brave to admit that. Facing fear is part of growth, Jake." Her steady gaze wrapped around him like a reassuring hand, but he sensed the tremor beneath. They both stood at the precipice. The distant noise grew louder, footsteps and voices ebbing closer, erasing the moment's intensity, like water washing over footprints in the sand. Jake felt the shift of reality encroaching upon their fragile communion, a reminder that he wasn't just questioning the future of his own aspirations, but of something shared that hadn't yet been named. "I have to know," he pressed, wrestling the tight knot in his stomach, determined to cut through the looming atmosphere. "What does this mean for you, for us?" "Every choice has its consequences," Elizabeth replied, a hint of vulnerability seeping into her tone. "But I feel a connection here, mirroring each other's breaks and dreams." A spark illuminated within him. The notion that they both bore the weight of their respective realities offered a sense of solidarity. Jake stepped out of the break room and into the bustling corridor, his mind racing as he navigated through the mingling crowd. The moment with Elizabeth echoed in his thoughts, a beacon of courage amidst the growing chaos. He had whispered his commitment to change, yet the enormity of that promise threatened to engulf him. Could he truly follow through on it? The voices faded into a low hum, his focus sharpening on the prospect of a new life. Clarity emerged. Tommy was his compass, and every step he took needed to be authentic. The realization struck him harder than he expected. So much of his life had revolved around merely existing, yet now he craved more. Jake rounded the corner, determination fueling his stride. He sought a familiar face. Greg, a fellow janitor with years of experience under his belt, possessed a wisdom that made Jake respect him. He spotted him diligently scrubbing the floor, the sound of the mop whispering against the tiles. "Got a minute?" Jake approached, his voice strengthened by resolve. Greg paused, resting his mop against the wall. "You seem different, Jake. What's on your mind?" "Everything. I mean, I've been offered an opportunity to step up, something meaningful. But I'm scared, you know?" He hesitated, his vulnerability momentarily surfacing. Greg chuckled softly. "Fear is part of the journey, my friend. But let's not confuse fear with a lack of capability. What does that opportunity look like?" Jake reflected for a moment. "It's about pursuing something greater for me and for Tommy. I've held back for so long. I want him to see what it means to chase dreams, not just settle." "Sounds like you already have your motivation. What's holding you back?" Greg leaned in, attentive, wise eyes searching Jake's. "Apart from needing to uncover my own worth, the fear of failing him, of not being enough? That's it right there, thinking you won't measure up. You underestimate your ability to adapt and grow." Greg's tone turned serious. "You're not just a janitor. People overlook the strength in those roles. You're always in the background, keeping everything running smoothly. You learn things about this place that most don't. Use that." Jake considered Greg's words, the weight of them settling in, shifting something deep within. "You really think so?" "It's not what I think, it's the truth. You've built skills, your work ethic, your ability to connect with people in ways others can't. You let go of safety for growth, and that's how you become something bigger than what you are now." The knot in Jake's stomach loosened slightly, an understanding dawning on him. He had spent years wrapped in the cocoon of routine, convinced of his limitations. But now, visions of what lay ahead unfurled like a map. "Okay, I want to explore opportunities beyond this. Get my education, find a way up." Each word felt liberating, as if shedding a skin that no longer fit. "Then go for it, Jake. Get involved, take classes, network, find mentors."
You've got this. But remember, success isn't just about climbing the ladder. It's about who you become along the way. Jake nodded, absorbing every ounce of advice. The fog of uncertainty began to clear, revealing a path where he could mold his present into a more profound future. As they chatted, he felt the urge to share his feelings about Elizabeth. "There's this amazing woman, Elizabeth. She's inspired me, but I keep wondering if it's too fast, too insane." Greg smiled knowingly. "The best things in life often happen when we take those leaps. So go on, embrace it. What's the worst that could happen?" Brimming with newfound courage, Jake took a deep breath. He needed to find Elizabeth again, not only to explore the connection burgeoning between them, but to unravel just how much they could navigate this journey together. "Thanks, Greg. I think I finally know what I need to do," Jake said, his heart pounding with excitement and determination. As he resumed his duties and spotted Elizabeth across the hall, standing next to a window catching the last rays of the day, a sudden jolt of clarity surged through him. The decision to act upon his feelings demanded to be manifest. Would he risk the vulnerability required to step forward, allowing both his professional and personal dreams to intertwine? With every moment ticking away, Jake approached Elizabeth, ready to face his fears head-on. Would he have the courage to reveal everything? Would their connection withstand the weight of the truth he was about to share? Jake's steps quickened as he crossed the polished floor toward Elizabeth, his heart thundering in rhythm with his resolve. He could see her laughter dancing in the air, the way her lips curved into a smile lighting up the dim corridor. She looked radiant, oblivious to the wavering emotion spiraling inside him. Every ounce of courage he had mustered inspired him to confront not just his feelings for her, but the facets of himself he had often ignored. It wasn't merely about the romantic tension.
It was about standing in his truth and the potential of either elevating his life alongside hers or watching from the sidelines. "Hey, Elizabeth," he called out, forcing himself to remain steady. The name rolled off his tongue, full of warmth but doused with urgency. She turned, her eyes sparkling with recognition. "Jake, I didn't know you'd be around here. I wanted to talk about us." Each syllable pushed through a veil that had shrouded him for so long. The hesitations he had felt before faded as the memories of Greg's encouragement rang in his ears. "Us?" She tilted her head slightly, curiosity intertwining with caution. "What do you mean?" He took a breath, aware that the moment was upon him, an ultimatum cloaked in vulnerability. "I know it's been sudden, but I feel this connection with you. I'm at a point in my life where I want to be honest about who I am, where I'm going. It's all so new, but I want to explore this, whatever this is." As he spoke, Jake noted the way her demeanor shifted, the initial spark of amusement now replaced with a more serious contemplation. "What do you mean by where I'm going?" The question hung between them, a lifeline inviting him to delve deeper. Jake could feel the weight of his past press against him, whispering doubts into his ear of inadequacy. But he knew that he had the choice to either succumb or rise. "I'm looking to change my life. For my son. For me. I want to forge something better, something meaningful." "Change?" she prompted, a hint of disbelief threading through her voice. "That's a big shift, Jake. How do you plan to do that?" He locked eyes with her, the gravity of their connection solidifying his courage. "I want to go back to school, get an education, pave a way for Tommy to see that there's so much more than just existing. I'm scared of failing, of letting him down, not just as a father, but as a person who inspired him to chase his dreams." Her expression softened, understanding now mingling with admiration. It's huge, Jake. You sound so determined." "Because I am." The conviction in his voice surged as he took a step closer, closing the distance between them. "And it starts with sharing my truth. I need you to know me, my passion, my hopes. You inspire me, Elizabeth, and it terrifies me." "What terrifies you the most?" she asked, her gaze unflinching, as if peeling away layers he never realized were so thick. "That I won't be enough, that I'll choke on the fear of it all." His confession echoed in the growing silence, raw and unguarded. "But what if you are?" Elizabeth's voice was soft yet penetrating, her encouragement mingled with hopefulness. Jake processed her words, realizing that maybe, just maybe, facing vulnerability wasn't the end. It was merely a beginning. As he stood there, something electric brewed between them, the air crackling with unsaid potential. "Would it be so wrong to kiss you now?" he asked, his heart racing, yearning for some kind of affirmation. She hesitated, uncertainty flitting across her features. "What if this is just a fleeting moment? What if your fears become a reality?" He had no clear answer, but the truth remained. He had nothing to lose. "We'll never know unless we step forward. I want to risk it, if you do." Jake leaned in, gently brushing against the uncharted space separating them, daring the moment to unfold. He needed to find out what their connection could become, a shared adventure of unexpected discoveries, as his life spiraled toward change. But just before their lips met, the world around him snapped back into focus. The responsibility he bore, the future he had to craft for Tommy, it all loomed even larger now. Would this step into the unknown lead to both love and growth? Or would it be a collision with the fears he had been trying to escape? As he pondered the intertwining paths of connection and aspiration, a voice echoed down the hall. "Jake, we need you in the maintenance room." A stark reminder that the world never paused, Jake felt a shiver of urgency. The moment was fleeting. How could he master the chaos of his professional life while unearthing a new personal reality? With his heart still racing and dilemmas intertwining, he avoided Elizabeth's gaze, torn between the immediate call of responsibility and the stirring desires that promised to shape his future. The next choice loomed daunting ahead. Could he balance both worlds he was striving to build? Jake's heart hastened as he snapped back to the reality thrust upon him by the call for his attention. He stepped away from the charged moment with Elizabeth, the warmth of possibility dispersing like smoke. He turned, his mind a weave of emotions, each thread a question tangled with doubts he had previously hoped to unravel. Could he really push through both fear and opportunity? The maintenance room lay beyond the corridor, a small, cluttered space filled with tools, supplies, and the sense of industrial cleaner and metal. As he walked in, ready to embrace the responsibilities laid at his feet, the contrast of the stark environment with the warmth he had just shared felt jarring. It was a reminder that while personal growth called out to him, reality awaited, unyielding and demanding. "Jake, we need to get this room sorted before the inspection," Matt, one of his coworkers, said, rummaging through a stack of uneven boxes. "They want everything spotless." Jake nodded, forcing his mind to shift gears. He welcomed the distraction, diving into the physical labor that grounded him, though his mind never fully left the conversation with Elizabeth. The dualities of his life tugged at him, the man who fixed problems and the man who sought to explore deeper connections. Both identities demanded attention, yet each felt distant from the other. As he began reorganizing the various items, tools clattering as they found their new homes on the shelves, Jake found a rhythm in the chaos. Sorting through the clutter required focus, allowing him to purge thoughts of self-doubt. His hands worked methodically, yet thoughts of his son drifted in. Would Tommy see him as a provider, or would he be a beacon of ambition? Could he bridge the gap between fatherhood and personal aspirations? He caught a glimpse of his reflection in a dusty metal panel, a tired man whose facade was cracking from the weight of expectation. The eyes staring back conveyed determination, yet they held traces of trepidation. "I can be better," he reminded himself as he wiped the sweat from his brow. The stark reality of his life as a janitor contrasted with the dreams he held close, but he refused to consider it a limitation. Moments later, Matt interrupted his thoughts. "You know, you seem different lately. Happier, maybe? What's going on?"
Jake hesitated, the vulnerability that had emerged around Elizabeth now flickering to the surface. "Just trying to figure some things out." "Figuring things out is code for finding love, huh? Spill it." Matt's eyes sparkled with mischief, but Jake noted the underlying sincerity, a reminder that even amidst the challenges, he wasn't alone. For a fleeting moment, he considered opening up, sharing the personal revelations he had gained. Instead, he felt the guard rise again. "Just focusing on my son and how to set a better example," he deflected. Matt shrugged, accepting the answer, even if it felt incomplete. "Well, whatever it is, keep going. It suits you." Encouragement dilated with doubt. The moment with Elizabeth had sparked something undeniable, yet the responsibilities he faced daily felt anchored in place. The abyss of threshold between chasing a new reality and adhering to the one laid before him, deeper than he realized. Jake tackled the next task, fixing a flickering light above. The movement, requiring agility and precision, amplified his need to regain control over his life. He couldn't let fear guide him. Yet, beneath that drive remained a gnawing question. What if he could merge both worlds? As he finished, Jake stood back, surveying the rightness of the organized space. The clutter he'd once drowned in felt like an image of his life, and for the first time, he saw potential. It wasn't about abandoning the janitor's life for a brighter path. It was about integrating his aspirations and responsibilities. With newfound clarity, he knew he could express his longing for both a connection with Elizabeth and a thriving future for Tommy. But would those worlds collide? Could he invite her into that part of his life without losing himself? As the thoughts marinated, he caught a glimpse of the clock. Time was slipping away, and with it, the chance to act on the decisions forged in this heated moment of clarity. He took a breath, energized by the prospect of choices yet on the horizon. His resolve solidified as he grabbed his phone, ready to call Elizabeth, setting the stage for the journey ahead. But just before pressing send, a text notification lit up the screen. "Elizabeth, we need to talk." Anxiety and anticipation collided within him, propelling him toward a new uncertainty. What conversation awaited him? Would it bring clarity or decimate the fragile hope he'd just begun to nurture? Jake inhaled sharply, the weight of Elizabeth's message crashing down on him like a sudden storm. "We need to talk." The phrase felt heavy, trapped between hope and trepidation. What did it mean? Did she sense his burgeoning feelings, or was she pulling away? The ambiguity gnawed at him, fueling a flicker of panic mingled with resolve. Setting aside the phone, Jake turned back to the organized maintenance room, taking a moment to soak in the simplicity of his newfound space. The clutter had transformed into something functional, methodical.
If only it were so straightforward with his feelings. He approached the light he had just repaired, focusing on the small triumph of having tackled a tangible problem. It reminded him of the satisfaction that came with tangible achievements, something he desperately craved in his personal life. The afternoon wore on, but every minute felt drawn out, weighed down by anticipation. He needed to stabilize himself before stepping back into the emotional fray. Thoughts of Tommy bubbled up, the boy's laughter, his innocent curiosity about the world. Jake's heart swelled, and he realized that any decision he made needed to echo in the life of his son. His role as a father wasn't just about being present, it was about being a real example of pursuing one's aspirations. Business as usual wasn't an option anymore if he intended to carve a life not just as a worker, but as a man with dreams. Slowly, the layers of fear began to peel away. The prospect of a conversation with Elizabeth pushed him to confront not only his feelings for her, but also his own self-limiting beliefs. He had spent years defining himself by his job, but what did that matter if he never allowed himself to strive for something greater? The phone buzzed again, snapping him from his reverie. Another message from Elizabeth, this one more urgent. "Meet me in the cafe down the street at 5. Time felt suspended. Did she want to talk about the moments they had shared? Had his feelings painted a target on his heart? There was no denying it. He had to face this head-on. With determination washing over him, Jake stepped outside, the brisk air invigorating his senses. Each step toward the cafe resounded with a palpable tension in his chest, mingled with the flutterings of hope. He contemplated what to say, mentally scripting an array of possibilities. Introducing her to Tommy, explaining why he kept his walls up, sharing the way she made him feel unleashed. Arriving at the cafe, he entered with purpose, only to find Elizabeth already seated. Her eyes sparkled with a mix of vulnerability and resolve. The contrast in the environment, the bustle of patrons, the aroma of fresh coffee, felt stifling and electric. He approached, every step a reminder of the walls he would need to lower. "Jake," she said, her voice soft yet piercing through his defenses. "I wasn't sure if you'd come." "Neither was I," he admitted, the honesty slinking into his tone. They locked eyes, and in that singular moment, layers of their experiences converged, a hint of the sparks he felt before, intertwined with the uncertainty of what lay ahead. The room buzzed around them, yet the world outside faded away. He felt exposed, willingly unraveling the tapestry of his feelings. "Elizabeth, I need to be honest with you about my life. I've been struggling with everything. My job, my past, and especially you." Elizabeth leaned forward, her expression meeting his vulnerability with understanding. "I have something I need to say too," she replied, a slow exhale escaping her. Behind her words lay untold stories and discovered dreams. Jake braced himself to understand the enormity of what was to come. There they sat, at the precipice of a new reality, one that could intertwine their paths not just as colleagues, but as something quintessentially more. But the air was thick with uncertainty, and as she opened her mouth to speak, The clock ticked steadily, reminding him that answers he sought remained just beyond reach, ready to alter the course of both their lives. Could they forge a path together, or would past fears derail all hope? Jake's heart raced as Elizabeth took a breath. Her lips parted as if ready to spill secrets she had held onto for too long. An overwhelming swell of anticipation coursed through him, mixing with the anxiety sharpening his focus. He had talked himself through countless scenarios, but he hadn't prepared for the notion that perhaps this conversation could pivot their lives entirely. "I've been thinking a lot about us," she started, her voice steady yet laden with hesitation. "I don't want to ignore what's been happening between us." Her words hung in the air, like the dust motes swirling in the sunlit cafe. Jake's reaction was immediate. He felt warmth flush his cheeks, a mixture of relief and doubt colliding within him. If she had been thinking about them, perhaps he wasn't alone in feeling this magnetic pull. But even as hope flickered within him, doubt lingered on the edges. What if she saw him only as a friend, as the single dad struggling to find his place in the world? "I do too," he said, forcing the words out, trying to sound confident, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. "But I've got so much happening in my life. Between my job and raising Tommy, I feel overwhelmed." Elizabeth nodded thoughtfully, a faint smile breaking through the tension that had wrapped around them. "I understand," she replied. "I've been overwhelmed too. It's why I wanted to talk. I didn't want to pretend anymore." The admission resonated with Jake, wrapping around his heart like a lifeline. Perhaps there was something deeper they could explore, a shared recognition of their struggles. Yet he couldn't ignore the nagging voice urging caution. What if they crossed a threshold they wouldn't be able to return from? "Let's not make this complicated," he suggested, his voice softer now. "We should take it slow. What if we start by just being ourselves with each other?" Her eyes sparkled with agreement, and he saw in her expression an openness he had longed for. This wasn't merely about romance, it was about connection. Two people grappling with their realities while reaching for something more, together. "Let's do that," she said, her smile widening. Their conversation shifted, moving from the fear of potential loss to the excitement of discovery. Time held its breath as Jake wrestled with his next words, the potential for transformation shimmering just out of reach. Jake could taste the tension in the air, a palpable mixture of possibility and fear. He could see the warmth in Elizabeth's eyes, but he also felt the gravity of their situation. Was he really prepared to embrace something new, something that might disrupt the fragile world he had built around Tommy? The cafe was still bustling around them, but in that moment there was an intense solitude, as though the rest of the world had faded away and left only the two of them. He took a deep breath, trying to anchor himself in the present, aware that hesitating too long could lead to an opportunity lost. Yet, with every second that passed, the reminder of his responsibilities whispered in the back of his mind, growing louder with each anxious heartbeat. "I'm scared," he admitted, the vulnerability slipping from him like a secret shared between friends. "I'm scared of failing, again." The honesty of his words seemed to hang heavily between them, laying bare the scars of his past. "I think that's normal, Jake," Elizabeth replied, her voice steady. "But fear doesn't have to dictate what we do. It can be a part of the process, but it shouldn't be the end of it." Her words struck a chord deep within him. He had long avoided risks, sheltered by the belief that staying in his comfort zone meant protecting both himself and Tommy. Yet here was a woman encouraging him to confront that very fear, to navigate through it instead of around it. What if it doesn't work out? What happens to my son if I pursue this and it leads to a mess? Jake's mind raced, imagining the worst-case scenarios. Tommy feeling abandoned or confused, the possibility of pain entering his son's life, all because Jake dared to reach for something he desired. It's a risk, yes, but isn't living with fear of what might happen a bigger risk? Her unwavering gaze bore into him, as though she could see the turmoil bubbling beneath his calm exterior. You've already built a small world with Tommy, one that I believe can expand without shattering. I'm not asking you to abandon what you've built. I'm here, willing to be part of it. Jake weighed her words carefully. He had always considered his son first, and the priority of his fatherhood was an anchor that kept him grounded. Yet, what good was he to Tommy if he was constantly living in fear of taking chances? What if opening his heart would inspire Tommy not only to love, but to take his own paths and risks in life? He found courage in the thought, an empowering realization that perhaps this potential relationship wasn't a hindrance, but rather an opportunity to teach Tommy resilience and the importance of connection. Could he navigate this complexity instead of viewing it as a threat? A new resolve surged within Jake, intertwining his anxiety with determination. "You're right," he finally replied, his voice steadier.
"And I want to explore this with you. Responsibly, of course." Elizabeth's smile lit up her features, radiating warmth into the space that had felt so heavy moments before. There was a recognition that he wasn't simply embracing a relationship. He was stepping into a new chapter of his life, brave enough to include someone who could appreciate him, flaws and all. "Let's take it slow," he reiterated, feeling more confident in that choice. "We can be friends first, see where it goes." "Friends who could possibly grow to be so much more," she replied, her smile softening into an expression of hope. "I'm excited by that." Tommy's face flickered through Jake's mind, and for the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of readiness to share this exploration with his son. Perhaps having someone like Elizabeth in their lives could bring a new light, a broader experience of what family could mean. As they finished their coffee and exchanged casual stories, a new comfortable rhythm formed between them. It wasn't just conversation, it was a mutual understanding building, a shared foundation where Jake could feel the self he hoped to become emerging from the shadows of doubt. But in the back of his mind, worries lingered. Would Tommy accept this change? The test of his commitment was yet to come, and Jake felt that decisions awaited him, as they often did in life, demanding attention. As they stepped outside, he realized this was just the beginning, and the air felt rife with potential. Little did he know that a moment would arrive soon that would challenge everything he had just resolved. "Can it really work?" he pondered as they walked side by side. "What happens when I bring her into Tommy's world?" He understood that this simple desire to connect held the power to alter not just his life, but Tommy's path forward as well. The journey had begun, but the next step, revealing Elizabeth to his son, loomed on the horizon like a shadow, casting doubt on the light they had just kindled together. In the weeks that followed, Jake embraced each day with newfound determination. He enrolled in night classes to push himself toward a better future. The anticipation of what lay ahead fueled his passion, each lecture igniting the dormant ambitions he had buried beneath years of scrubbing floors. The spark he discovered within himself resonated, and he saw promise in the doorways of opportunity standing before him. Every evening spent studying brought him closer to achieving his goals, but it was the moments he spent with Tommy that truly grounded him. He began to share his journey with his son, explaining the importance of learning and dreaming big. "You see, buddy," he would say, helping Tommy with his homework, "the world is filled with chances to become anything you want. You just have to grab hold of them." Jake could see Tommy absorbing these lessons, his curiosity blossoming beyond the simplicity of childhood. Yet, in the back of Jake's mind, the specter of Elizabeth lingered like a double-edged sword. Their connection deepened as they navigated the complexities of their lives, trading stories over coffee, laughing, and nurturing a shared ambition for growth. Each moment with her felt electric. Their time spent together transformed with purpose,
and Jake began to see a future where he and Elizabeth could share their aspirations, intertwining their lives through their parallel journeys. One evening, Jake found the courage to invite Elizabeth over for dinner. The thought of introducing her to Tommy was nerve-wracking, but it was a pivotal moment, a step toward fully integrating his two realities. "This is it," he whispered to himself as he prepped the meal, merging excitement with trepidation. As Elizabeth approached their apartment that night, her energy filled the room. Jake felt a flutter of nerves knot in his stomach. After weeks of bonding, this was the moment he had long anticipated, yet dreaded. How would Tommy react? Would he be open to this new person weaving her way into their lives? "Hey there," Elizabeth greeted as she stepped through the door, her smile instantly easing the tension. Tommy's eyes lit up at the sight of her, fascination mingling with curiosity. "Hi, Elizabeth," he exclaimed, bouncing forward for a warm hug, and Jake felt the knot in his stomach loosen. Maybe this would be all right after all. They settled in, laughter and light conversation flowing easily as they shared the meal Jake prepared. His heart swelled at the sight of Elizabeth engaging with Tommy, listening attentively as he recounted stories from school. In that moment, it felt like something wondrous was blossoming before his eyes, a budding relationship that went beyond momentary affection, weaving a tapestry of trust and acceptance. After dinner, Jake excused himself for a moment. Standing in the kitchen, he watched through the doorway as Elizabeth playfully engaged Tommy in a game of cards. Gratitude washed over him, a profound realization that this connection wasn't merely a fleeting romance. It could become a family anchored in mutual support and love. As the evening progressed, he noticed Tommy's laughter grew more infectious as he connected with Elizabeth, and this warmth seeped into him. Once the dishes were done and the game had concluded, Jake took a deep breath. "Would it be all right if I said something?" Both of them turned to him, a ripple of curiosity dancing between them. "Of course," Elizabeth encouraged, sincerity in her eyes. He steadied himself, words forming with purpose. "I know it's been a journey for all of us these past few weeks. I want you to know that the connection I feel with you is genuine, Elizabeth. You bring out the best in both me and Tommy." Her smile widened, and Jake felt a surge of confidence bolster him. "I want to take this further, embrace a path where we can all learn and grow together as a family. I want Tommy to see what it means to invest in relationships, to take risks bravely and not shy away from love." His voice trembled with hope, yet the determination planted firmly in his heart resonated clearly. He had conquered the fears that once eclipsed his dreams, and now he couldn't let uncertainty limit them further. "Jake," Elizabeth began, but he raised his hand gently. "I just want to know if you're willing to join us on this journey, together." A silence fell over the room as their eyes locked. Jake could sense her heartbeat align with his, a moment that spoke volumes. "I want that too," she finally said, her voice steady with unwavering conviction. "I want to foster a sense of family that supports one another through everything. Tommy, you are part of a new journey for both of us, and I see such promise in it." A wave of relief washed over Jake, but he wasn't finished yet. "And if the time comes when you want to share your world with Tommy as well, I'll be right there beside you." The words hung in the air, punctuated by the shared understanding of the commitment they both wished to foster. Time felt suspended, the essence of beginnings weaving through each of their hearts. "I think together we can create something beautiful," she said softly, her eyes shimmering with a sense of belonging. From that moment forward, their connection deepened, infused with purpose and promise. With each passing day, Jake discovered layers of love that expanded beyond the limits he had previously set for himself. Supported by Elizabeth, he approached challenges not just as obstacles, but as opportunities, and together they navigated through every storm that life had yet to throw their way. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between them solidified, marking a recognizable shift in Jake's sense of self. It was no longer about simply providing for Tommy. It was about leading him toward a future painted with shades of aspiration, courage, and strength. "Are you ready?" Tommy would often ask him before leaving for school, his innocent curiosity reflecting a segue into Jake's newfound ambition. "Always," Jake would reply with a smile, the promise of hope filtering into their lives. In that evolving family dynamic, Jake learned that it was less about navigating every complication perfectly and more about building a foundation of openness and resilience. Elizabeth complemented his journey, offering support when doubts arose. Together, they anchored each other amidst the storms that life had yet to throw their way. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between them solidified, marking a recognizable shift in Jake's sense of self. It was no longer about simply providing for Tommy. It was about leading him toward a future painted with shades of aspiration, courage, and strength. "Are you ready?" Tommy would often ask him before leaving for school, his innocent curiosity reflecting a segue into Jake's newfound ambition. "Always," Jake would reply with a smile, the promise of hope filtering into their lives. In that evolving family dynamic, Jake learned that it was less about navigating every complication perfectly and more about building a foundation of openness and resilience. Elizabeth complemented his journey, offering support when doubts arose. Together, they anchored each other amidst the storms that life presented. With every risk taken, he thought back on the day that he stood in the break room, feeling lost and overwhelmed. Now he stood firmly in his identity, no longer just a janitor, but a father forging a legacy for his son, and a compassionate partner embracing love. The transitions they faced flourished alongside each other, mirroring the growth that Jake had once thought was unattainable. In every lesson shared, every moment spent nurturing dreams, he realized that they had indeed transformed something magnificent. Satisfactory realizations settled upon him. He was no longer just a man struggling against an unseen tide. He was a father, a dreamer, and a partner, a champion on a path toward a boldly defined future. As he closed the door behind him each night, memories unfurled like pages in a book, and Jake understood he had taken control of his narrative. He looked forward to dreaming alongside Tommy and Elizabeth, who inspired him to take that leap into the unknown, together. Now is the time for you to take charge of your own story. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you won't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for heartfelt journeys of transformation. Comment your reactions and theories about how this story resonated with you. Your voice is valuable. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to spread these messages of personal overcoming.